All right, welcome back to the Elias Makos Show. It's the third hour of the program. Now, we're going to start off with this. I don't think there's any question that Canada is facing an unprecedented trade war with the United States. And a lot of people are asking the question, faced with this unprecedented situation, why is it that Parliament is not in session, right? Parliament remains shut down after Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's decision to prorogue it. The move has sparked a constitutional challenge, and over 50,000 Canadians have signed a petition demanding Parliament be reopened. And a court hearing is set this week to argue over the legality of this prorogation. Let's go to John Carpay, president and founder of the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. He's on the line. John, welcome to the show.
To be with you.
So listen, I'm getting up there in age, and throughout my life, various governments have used the prorogation tool. It happens at times. Why would you say that this time around is different and that it requires a constitutional challenge?
Well, as you know, prorogation is the total shutting down of Parliament, but without an election to follow. And it is a normal and legitimate process where Parliament has reached its natural conclusion. So you have a throne speech first, and Parliament sits for a year, 2 years, and the government passes legislation to align with the throne speech to implement its agenda. And you come to a natural end. You say, okay, Parliament's prorogued, and then when it reopens, you have a new throne speech, and the government kind of sets out its agenda for the next year or 2 years. So there's nothing wrong with it in and of itself. But when it's for 11 weeks, and when it serves the political interests of one political party rather than serving Canada's interests, it's illegitimate. And so the Justice Center's lawyers filed a court action on January 7th, one day after Trudeau announced that he was proroguing Parliament.
What are the legal mechanisms here in order to force Parliament to get back to work? I mean, I'm trying to get through. If you're successful, how can you how could you be successful? Like, what would have to happen for your case to be successful?
Well, the federal court, if it rules in favor of our application, it will set aside and annul the prorogation as though it never happened, and then Parliament will be back in session, the following day, or perhaps 48 hours later. The MPs will be back, and they will have the option, if they choose to have a non-confidence vote and force an immediate election. But that's really up to the MPs. Our position is that this was prorogation in the interests of one political party and not in the national interest, and just an abuse of process. Again, prorogation is normal, but not for 11 weeks, and not as a means of avoiding a confidence vote.
John, is there any precedent for what you're hoping for here?
Yes, in 2019, the United Kingdom Supreme Court set aside the prorogation that had been effected by Prime Minister Boris Johnson. He was in a minority government, and the United Kingdom had voted 3 years earlier to leave the European Union, and there were some disagreements. Boris Johnson wanted to get out as soon as possible, even without a deal. The majority of MPs were probably not in favor of that, and so he prorogued Parliament for 5 weeks, which was a lot longer. In Britain, it's usually 1, 2, 3 weeks. This was taken to court, and the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom set aside the advice that Prime Minister Boris Johnson had given to Queen Elizabeth, and said it was unlawful because it violates the sovereignty of Parliament. In our system, the government is accountable to Parliament. Parliament is not a tool or a servant of the Prime Minister.
Now, you've got this hearing set for this week, February 13th and 14th. I know, it must be a victory that you even got the hearing, right? Because there is a possibility that you wouldn't have even reached this point. But it does seem like, there's a lengthy delay there. I think it's over a month since you filed to actually getting this hearing. It seems to me that time is of the essence in a case like this. How do you approach that aspect here?
Well, granted, it's been a month since a month and 4 days since we filed our application. That is lightning speed compared to how litigation usually moves through the courts. It takes months if you're lucky, and it almost always takes years. And the federal government initially they dragged their heels and they said, we'll get back to you next week with our position on whether or not we think this matter is urgent. And the federal court Chief Justice Paul Crampton said, no, you're getting back to us quickly with your position. They forced us to make a motion for an expedited hearing, but we won that motion. And the court on January the 18th issued a ruling that this is going to be expedited. We could be seeing a decision as early as February 17th, February 18th. And I know, a few weeks is a long time, but this is lightning speed compared to the ordinary.
We're with John Carpay. He's president and founder of the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. They're challenging the current prorogation of Parliament. Let me ask you, John, just on constitutional freedoms. You're part of the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. How has this government, the current Liberal government, played with that, with constitutional freedoms? How do you think they do it, respecting the Constitution in general?
Well, we've had a court victory against the federal government 13 months ago. January 2024, the federal court ruled that the Prime Minister acted illegally when declaring a national emergency. So we have a court ruling that the violent suppression of the peaceful protest, the Freedom Convoy in Ottawa, the violent suppression of that protest was a violation of charter rights and freedoms. The freezing of bank accounts was an unjustified violation of the charter rights and freedoms. The Online Harms Act is just a blatant and very frightening violation of freedom of expression. So it's not the government alone that's to blame, but we're living in a culture where a lot of Canadians have lost touch with the importance of our fundamental freedoms of expression, religion, conscience, peaceful assembly, and so on.
John, what do you think your chances are this week at your hearing?
We have a very strong case. I never try to make a prediction. This case is also quite totally different from lockdowns and vaccine passports, where the courts have been very unsympathetic to charter rights and freedoms. This is a new leaf. It's a brand new and very different case. And the factums of ourselves and of the government are posted on our website. So yeah, we think we have a good chance of success.
John, I want to thank you so much for coming on today, and I will be watching the hearings later this week.
Thanks for having me on your show. Deeply appreciated.
John Carpay there. He's the president and founder of the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms.